How did Michigan get legalized concealed weapons? We know that the first gun laws in America were passed by Southern Democrats. The laws were intended to keep blacks from defending themselves from the Klan. Were Michigan's concealed gun laws rooted in racism? Here's Rick Ector.
Back during this era in 1993, concealed pistol licenses were issued under a system known as discretionary licenses. Typically in places in which people of color, black people did not live or were not in high numbers, generally speaking, everyone who applied for one got one. And in the city of Detroit, in Wayne County, if you wanted a concealed pistol license, they had a whole list of criteria under May issue that they would look at. If you weren't a celebrity, if you weren't rich, if you weren't a politician or well-connected in some way or another, or happened to know someone, you could not get a concealed pistol license in the county of Wayne. And this was particularly for people of color. And yes, believe it or not, if you didn't know, the concealed pistol license were, in essence, they were racist and they were discretionary. Many people of color who would have otherwise qualified could not get these concealed pistol licenses.
Know that if you outlaw guns, then only outlaws will have guns. Recently on Tucker Carlson, Tucker did a report on the benefits of concealed weapons in Detroit.
I see little to no need for guns at all.
Yeah, just some rational discourse. But we don't need guns. Well, of course we need guns. You're not allowed to have guns. That's the attitude. Wealthy liberals obviously hire bodyguards or hide themselves away in safe gated neighborhoods. But what about people who can't afford to do that? What would gun bans mean for people who live in, say, Detroit, Michigan? Well, this show went to Detroit to investigate that very question, and here's what we found.
My name is Elena Gonville, and I live in the city of Detroit.
Elena Gonville is an armed Detroiter.
I carry a Glock 45.
You put in the chamber?
Definitely. I keep my gun right here on my lap.
She chooses to carry a gun to protect herself. She says her gun helped her survive an armed carjacking at a liquor store on Detroit's west side.
My arm was hit.
Gonville was shot in the arm during the attack.
War wound here.
She drove herself to the hospital. Police never caught the attackers.
So they had AK, and I had my Glock, and it went down. They saw a pretty girl with pink lipstick, and they just thought that they could get me. And surprise, surprise, I'm Honey the Bouncer.
Stories like hers are why so many people in Detroit have decided to take personal protection into their own hands.
Why do you carry a firearm?
Because I live in Detroit.
Why not call the police?
Sometimes it takes a while.
How you doing?
Detroit's chief of police, James Craig, agrees.
It only takes a minute or less for violence to happen, and it's over.
And that's why Craig strongly supports the right to carry.
If a citizen is armed, they have a better opportunity of staying alive than if they weren't.
Michigan issues gun permits to anyone in Detroit who takes a class and passes a background check. Gonville took her firearms class with Detroit native Rick Ector.
Heck yeah, let's shoot.
Ector's Detroit-based gun rights group, named Legally Armed in Detroit, has helped thousands of women get their carry permits.
We have a growing number of women here in Metro Detroit who are learning more about firearms and what it takes to defend themselves.
Do you recommend that law-abiding citizens go out and get that permit?
If they're law-abiding, they get the training, absolutely. I've particularly found interest in going to classes that are all female, who support carrying concealed weapons.
The number of permits has surged. In Wayne County, Michigan, where Detroit is located, nearly 1 in every 10 people has a carry permit.
We have professionals, we have house moms, we have people who are just everyday normal citizens.
When criminals prey and look for victims, they're usually looking for those who they believe are defenseless. We're talking about women. We're talking about the elderly.
There's always going to be crime. There's always going to be, they say the devil came to steal, kill, and destroy, and he's not going nowhere.
What would happen if the government made it illegal to carry a gun?
People would still carry. My dad always says, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Is that how it goes? So, I mean, it's
That's how it goes. Elena Gonville is hardly alone. Part 2 of our series on being legally armed in the city of Detroit airs tomorrow night. Good luck to Beto trying to take those guns away. Well, Detroit, Michigan is, of course, one of the most violent places in the United States. When seconds count, police will be there in minutes. That's why thousands of law-abiding citizens in Detroit carry their own firearms and defend themselves. So we went to Detroit to meet some of the good guys who carry guns. Here's part 2 in our series on being legally armed in Detroit.
Detroit Emergency 911 with
shooting to 11,
It was a nightmare situation for someone with a concealed pistol license.
I was arrested, handcuffed, and then taken down to the jailhouse.
Marcus Weldon says he was on his way home from an office Christmas party, dressed as Santa Claus, when he stopped at a gas station to help a female coworker change her tire.
An individual approached her during that time I was changing her tire and physically pushed her. He was intoxicated. I intervened, and it became a situation where he wanted to retrieve his firearm, and we had a shootout. I was charged with 7 felonies for defending myself as well as a friend.
His church helped him cover more than $50,000 in legal fees. After more than a year in court, a jury cleared Weldon on all charges.
He was called the Santa Shooter after he was arrested for opening fire dressed as St. Nick.
But now he wants to go by a new name, Free Man, after he's been acquitted of all charges.
Like thousands of Detroiters, he has a license to carry a concealed weapon.
The police chief has actually pushed for individuals to carry.
There's been research that shows criminals fear armed citizens more than they fear police.
Why not just call the police?
Well, the thing about it, when you're dealing with someone who's intoxicated, it's kind of hard to de-escalate the situation and call the police, and hopefully the police would arrive in time.
By the time we're called, it's usually after the fact, so we're reacting to the crime.
Detroit's police department faces a challenging task. They're responsible for a city as large as Philadelphia, but with 1/3 as many officers.
Police departments are staffed based on population. Police are not everywhere, every minute, every block. Oftentimes I hear that, well, Chief, just hire more police officers. I mean, it's not even realistic.
It's a sentiment echoed by firearms instructor Rick Ector.
There's a high level of crime here. They will make every effort to get to your residence as soon as possible. They may not get there fast enough.
This is not being a vigilante. I'm not advocating that, but I'm also advocating not becoming a victim. And this is about staying alive. That's just the reality, and that's anywhere.
Detroit's rate of justifiable homicides in which criminals are killed by armed citizens is 20 times higher than the national average.
Bad guys love gun control. Additional legislation, anti-gun laws, would not stop bad guys from plying their evil trade.
Bad guys have guns. I think good guys should have the opportunity to have guns as well.
Weldon was reissued his carry permit after he was exonerated, and he still carries to this day.
Did the Michigan legislature pass concealed weapons laws because it was the right thing to do? Or was there another reason? Former State Representative Leon Drolet explains why the legislature passed concealed weapons laws.
So, quick example of what voters will tolerate. So in the 90s, there was a lot of folks trying to liberalize concealed carry permits. It used to be very hard to get a concealed weapons permit. And there was organized Second Amendment groups that were trying to get that changed, and they were powerful enough to get a bill introduced to the legislature every time, but they always got crushed when it came up for a vote. They would lose by 2/3 of the vote. Well, the Second Amendment groups, were obviously cheesed off. They wanted to win, so eventually they settled on a new strategy. They decided instead of lobbying, instead of trying to do all these other things, they're going to try and take out one politician in an election. So they targeted a guy, a Republican from Wayne County area named Jim Ryan, and they relabeled him Lion Jim Ryan, and they sent all these Second Amendment folks from all around the state down to door knock for his pro-gun Democrat named Bob Brown. And they door knocked, and they sent money, and they did all stuff. And sure enough, Jim Ryan lost the election to Bob Brown. Well, that had an impact. It showed what the voters would tolerate, what was dangerous, what was in the interest or not in the interest of elected officials. So 6 months later, there's another vote on the concealed weapons bill, and it passes. The liberal, it's completely switched. 2/3 of the politicians voted for it instead of against it, and it was the same people. So moving the window is the most important thing anybody can do. And what you guys can do to impact public policy is to be an expert at some point in that pyramid. Either be a great communicator or an intellectual that helps people learn about these ideas, or an actuator like what you guys do to try and round up folks and mold public opinion and shape opinion. Being an expert in that pyramid, in one or more places in that pyramid, and you will change public policy more than any politician by him or herself can. You will move the window, and the politicians will chase it. They'll be chasing you.